Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate, Mid-South Homebuyers, and Ridge Lending Group.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Hey, welcome to GRE, Get Rich Education, episode 155. Hi, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, and we're going to be talking with Real Estate Deal Talks' Abhi Golhar today. But first, I want to talk to you about building your wealth by developing a recurring revenue business model and doing it with real estate. Being a buy and hold real estate investor for passive income is a lot like doing what a mega successful company like Amazon does. Yeah, you're actually doing it too. Look, Amazon as a company is so successful largely because they've got a well-developed recurring revenue business model with Amazon Prime. They have an ongoing relationship with their customers, and Amazon gets $99 per year from tons of people. That's the recurring revenue. And in fact, this year, Forbes reported that nearly 2 out of every 3 U.S. households has an Amazon Prime membership. A lot of people expect Amazon to be the first ever company to hit $1 trillion in valuation. They're already about halfway there in terms of market cap. Well, gosh, don't you wish that you could do what Amazon does? Well, of course you can, and you are. As a real estate investor, this model probably sounds pretty familiar to you. You set up a recurring revenue business model like Amazon does. In your case, it's just called cash flowing real estate, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel like Amazon and do what they did by developing a giant e-commerce platform and shopping carts or search engine optimization. And you don't have to build mega warehouses, fulfillment centers as they may be. You don't have to build those across the world and put cutting edge robotic automation inside them. And on top of Amazon's recurring revenue model, which is that durable income stream from Prime, Amazon sells products that people need every day, paper towels and soap and batteries. Just the same, you sell the product of housing to people that need to live in it every day, that space where people need to eat and sleep and bathe, and it's within a recurring revenue model in the form of your monthly rent income. Amazon does this at scale, and so are you, or maybe you're trying to. That's why real estate investing can be a life-changing vehicle for you. So the message is that passive buy and hold real estate investing is a successful model like Amazon because both of those systems deliver products of value that people absolutely need, and they're each done within a recurring revenue business model. Well, I'm back in the United States today after a 2-week foreign trip to Belize and Costa Rica. And back here in the U.S., I recently appeared as a guest on an Atlanta radio station, Biz 1190, talking about real estate investing, of course, on a show hosted by the guest that you're going to meet today, Abhi Golhar, and I think he's someone that you should be familiar with. Before Abhi got to where he is today, he failed early when he invested in real estate in Detroit when he was just 18 or 19 years old. And after that, some people might say that he bounced around the Midwest, but what he did is that instead he really followed real estate mentors around the Midwest before finally settling in Atlanta where he is today. And that's not bouncing around, that's following a path, and having the wherewithal to learn and follow mentors is why he's a successful real estate investor and educator today. Let's meet him. Today's guest is a real estate investor, radio and podcast show host in Atlanta, and a contributor to both Forbes and Inc. Just like a lot of us, he was influenced by that little purple book. Abhi Golhar, welcome to Get Rich Education.
Thanks, Keith, for having me.
And of course, for the uninitiated, that little purple book that's so influential is that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And you know what, Abhi? Although there's absolutely nothing original about mentioning the influence of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think even better is That's kind of like a term of endearment where it binds a lot of us like thinkers together.
It really does. I mean, if you look at the commonality between a lot of the real estate investors out there, it comes down to mindset. It comes down to the little purple book. And I always get a chuckle too, right? It's like, wow, everybody that I know, every successful investor that I know has read that book and then probably gone to read the entire series. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that there are so many gold nuggets within those pages and then subsequent conversations. It's incredible. So I'm just excited about that and the future potential for everything. It's incredible.
Yeah, I don't think you and I would be talking to each other right now if it weren't for that book. And it's just amazing
That's
the
right.
connectivity that's enabled in the world. So just tell us about you, rewinding back toward the beginning, Abhi. How did you get your start in real estate investing?
Boy, it was a rough start, Keith. It really was tough. I was a college student at the University of Michigan. Back in 2002 is when I started. And I pretty legitimately failed my first semester. Here I was coming out of high school thinking I was hot stuff, thinking that I could ace the engineering college in my first semester's classes, and I absolutely didn't. And what a wake-up call that was. After that first semester, my buddy Tommy, he's like, wow, you look pretty pathetic. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, your body language is terrible. You sound bad. Like, what's going on? And I told him, I'm like, I'm not doing well. I thought this would be easier, and I don't know what to do. I really hope I can do better next semester. He's like, you know what? You better read this book. And I said, what book is that? He said, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And before then, I'd read a couple of books into As a Man Thinketh, and Think and Grow Rich, and Acres of Diamonds, and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this really gave me a good understanding.
Yeah.
After reading that book, I found, again, that commonality that every wealthy individual had, and that was real estate. Whether this person was a tech person, whether this person was in oil or gas, every wealthy person had real estate in their portfolio. More specifically, cash flowing real estate in their portfolio, because quite frankly, real estate gives you income, depreciation, equity appreciation, and leverage. These are 5 things that you can only find in the real estate asset class that no other asset class can provide. So I thought to myself, wow, let's go ahead and jump into this industry and jump into investing. Now, keep in mind, I was 18 at the time. I had no idea how to invest. I had no idea how to raise money and nothing. But I realized one thing. I realized that if I wanted to buy real estate, whether it was a cash flowing rental property or a rehab project, I needed cash. I needed money. So my mentor at the time, he was based out of Malibu, California, and he taught me how to buy and sell cars on eBay. And it was a really weird thing, and I'm like, what's going on? And I had to learn this. Essentially, I went to Craigslist, and this is a completely viable business model, by the way, for those that are listening that want something to start with. You can, say, do a search for a 1967 Ford Mustang, find a car, negotiate the price, essentially like you would a house, get all the details, the picture, the video, put it up on eBay and see if you can sell it. And that's what I did, and I had the rights to market, and I had all that stuff, the proper paperwork with the seller of the car. But that's what I did for a good year and a half before I purchased my first property in inner city Detroit. Now, when I was in Detroit, I trusted the wrong people because I didn't know any better. I was 18, 19 years old, still trying to figure this out.
Right.
And my mentor just didn't have my back. And boy, I learned a lot of lessons then. It was, working with contractors and different things. So it was a fun time back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's where the lessons get learned. You know what I call that? I call that taking night classes at the School of Hard Knocks. That's basically what you were doing there. So, yeah, coming off the influence of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's just so many main takeaways one can take there. I think really the takeaway in the context shift is that it is all about income streams rather than accumulating some big illiquid chunk that really isn't even going to benefit your life until you're in your 60s. So as an 18-year-old, it can actually be quite exciting to find out, wow, I can actually increase my income passively in the near future as a young person.
It was an incredible shift in mindset for me, Keith. It really was, because I didn't have access to this. I didn't have exposure to this growing up. I'm not a silver spoon or anything like that. I mean, I had to figure this stuff out myself. And my dad said, he's like, all right, you have an interest in real estate? Figure it out. What? Where do you start? What do you do? And here I was like the youngest person going to all these meetings with attorneys and CPAs. And I did Toastmasters when I was in college because I had a fear of speaking, believe it or not. And all of this stuff kind of put together like a big puzzle to then figure out, okay, wow, I can do this and I have a basic working of real estate, but there's certain things that I really needed to know, like how do you find a deal? How do you evaluate this deal, that I just wasn't paying attention to because I wasn't cued in. I was so ready, Keith, to just plunge into a deal and just buy it and buy it and buy it and buy it, just like a lot of new investors are doing right now, which I think is really dangerous. But that's what I was doing back in 2002, 2003, which led to all of the lessons following that mental mind shift.
You go ahead and you're building confidence, you're learning, and then what brought you to Atlanta?
Another mentor, another real estate mentor, and I wanted to move to a big city. I felt this need that a bigger city would mean more opportunities instead of, I had this longing to be part of a big city. And when I was at Michigan, I had started having some initial conversations with a guy who was then my mentor here in Atlanta. And he said, you know what? You're doing some good stuff. You have a good head on your shoulders. You always want to provide value. You see good in people. Why don't you come to Atlanta and check it out? Let's move you to Atlanta. Let's work on some real estate deals and let's see how things turn out. And this was in 2007. So I moved to Atlanta maybe a couple of months before the real estate market just crashed. And I saw everything just turn red. It was incredible. There were so many deals to be had on the streets. It was like everybody was buying this and that, and then all of the buying just stopped. It was the weirdest thing. It was the weirdest feeling, Keith, let me tell you, from early 2008, this was maybe January 2008, right up until maybe May or June 2008, there was a flurry of buying activity, and then it just ceased. Credit markets pulled back, so nobody was really getting any more lines of credit, and now all of a sudden we had turmoil. So when I moved to Atlanta, I moved at a very interesting time when the real estate market was totally down in the dumps. You had mortgage fraud that was prevalent throughout the country, especially in Atlanta. The 30310 is a zip code in Atlanta that was probably, I think, on Bank of America's top 10 zip codes in the country, if not the top 3 zip codes in the country for the most mortgage fraud. And this was a zip code where I was finding good deals. It was incredible. So I moved to Atlanta and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is going to be a crazy move. Needless to say, it absolutely was.
Oh, there's just so much to comment on there. As you're building knowledge and experience and moving around across the country, that just says a lot about you that you decided to follow a mentor. A lot of people don't want to admit that they're still students and that they're lifelong students, and they wouldn't follow their mentor. A lot of people want to become independent and think they know it all and go it alone, and you just don't get that big going it alone. I mean, Tiger Woods is a student because he has a coach. Kevin Durant is effectively a student because he has a coach. So we're all students, and a lot of people just seem to forget that we're all lifelong students. And yeah, what an interesting time to be in Atlanta when, just like most U.S. housing markets in 2008, 2009, they went through a whole lot of pain, and you kind of found out who the investors were that weren't investing for cash flow or did tie up property with an irresponsible loan. And just kind of like they say, when the tide goes out, you find out who was swimming naked.
Completely agreed. I love what you said about mentors. You have to have the right teachers in your life, but it's okay to make the mistake, right? It's okay to make the mistake to pick the bad mentor, because at least you're taking action and you're doing something and you're learning your lesson. 1, about the market, 2, about the potential project or deal that you're working on, and 3, about selecting people. I couldn't agree more. If we don't have teachers in our lives, then we won't grow. We're not pushed to be better because we assume that we're the best. There's one thing that I know for certain, and that's I don't know everything. And there's no way I could possibly know everything. If we wake up every day and we're humble and we're willing to work hard, then I think the forces of the universe and the energies just works in our favor. If on the other side of the coin, if we decide to wake up in the morning and have a crappy attitude, be arrogant, not be willing to help others, then that leads us down a different path with a different destiny. We always have to keep a good head on our shoulders and always have to be providing value and finding mentors that we can work with, because mentors in the residential, say, development space or the residential flipping space, those are totally different people than mentors that you should find or that you'll find in the single family buy and hold turnkey space, or also the kind of larger multifamily apartment complex space. 2 totally different sets of people, and incredible people that everybody should absolutely have on their team.
Any particular tips that you have, Abhi, for someone that wants to find a mentor? What do they look for? What are some of those signs that you want to avoid that you don't have the right mentor that can take you to the next level?
I think one of the biggest things that you should pay attention to is history. Have no shame in asking your mentor the types of projects he or she are working on. and maybe even have them give you a tour just to make sure that they are legitimately people that are investing in real estate. Too many times, and I get so frustrated with this, Keith, it's too many times where people will pay for a $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 or $80,000 mastermind real estate investing course and end up on a fur bus tour of Atlanta not learning anything. You don't need that. Please do not raise your credit card limits and go buy a course that's that expensive. Worst case, instead, find somebody locally where you jive with. Check out the personality, and it's okay to date them before you marry them, right? I mean, that's kind of important here. And you have to know if the person is going to have your back and will you have their back. And quite frankly, it's not going to be an overnight relationship. This relationship will be formed over time by you providing value and by you really analyzing if this mentor is somebody that makes sense for you. Something else that you should also keep in mind is, what type of investor are you? Are you the type of investor that's going to be I'm going to jump out of a plane and build a parachute on the way down kind of person? If that's the case, then you probably want to find somebody that's been there, that's done that, that's been through a couple market cycles. So they understand your frame of mind, and they also understand how to kind of help you navigate the waters with that mindset, because it's a very daring, it's a very bold, it's a very courageous mindset. And what I'm seeing now in Atlanta for flipping is folks will just buy without thinking that they need cash flow. And that is the mentality that it will equate to, where all I want to do is flip and flip and flip and flip, get the capital, get the money in my bank account, and then not do anything with it for the next year except just flip some more. That's a very dangerous mindset to be in. But if you train it right and if you find the right mentor, then you can accordingly adjust that portfolio. So understanding yourself, understanding your investment personality is super, super important as well.
Yeah, we talk about the value of the team here on Get Rich Education a lot, and that team is especially led by that property manager. In fact, your manager is even more important than the property. So if you look at you and you at yourself, you kind of got the property manager at that lower level, below you in a sense, if you will, and that property manager is kind of protecting what you have. But you got to think about the mentor who effectively is above you, and that's expanding you into more rather than just protecting what you have. And just like a good property manager, a good mentor is not an expense but an investment. You're listening to Get Rich Education. Our guest is Abhi Golhar. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold.
Are you looking for a roadmap to financial freedom? If so, we have a solution for you. Norada Real Estate is offering a limited number of free strategy sessions to help you get out of the rat race. Learn how you can create wealth and build monthly passive income. To set up a time with one of our knowledgeable investment counselors, simply go to noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
Cash flow real estate investors, if you're looking for a mortgage loan with a company that specializes in investment property loans, it's Ridge Lending Group. They provide income property loans in almost every U.S. state. Ridge has worked with tens of thousands of investors and homeowners all over the country. In fact, with ethics and transparency, they've helped more people realize their dreams through real estate investing than any other mortgage lender in the country. Get started at ridgelendinggroup.com.
We're Rich Dad Advisors, Josh and Lisa Lannon.
Be who you are becoming. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education with our guest, Abhi Golhar from Real Estate Deal Talk, realestatedealtalk.com. Abhi, I want to talk to you a little bit about why real estate investing. And one thing I think of when I think about real estate investing is that real estate is something that's lasting. It's going to be around. It's very difficult for technology to disrupt that. Doing the right thing is more important than doing things right. So pick the right thing to learn about. Something like real estate. It's something that we're all going to be living inside. Well, we also have a body that we're going to be living inside as well. That's something that's worth learning about and immersing yourself with new knowledge in, because you're going to be living both inside real estate and inside a body for the rest of your life. If one tries to better themselves financially, they're going to have a lot of money and a good income stream, and therefore they're going to want to have a body that they're able to live in for a long time to enjoy these income streams with. So the two are kind of connected. Any thoughts there?
I couldn't agree more. I think that's an incredible segue into just a wake-up call for folks that are not taking care of their bodies to take care of their bodies, because it's useless to have a bad physical state when you are absolutely investing in real estate or just investing in anything in general. I mean, if you want to play the top of your game, then you better be ready. You better be able to bring it with all the energy every single day. And you can't do that if your body isn't right. There's so many folks that treat a Ferrari like a Toyota Camry. And I guarantee you the world's best drivers like Schumacher will tell you otherwise. You cannot treat a Ferrari like a Toyota Camry. You have to treat a Ferrari like a Ferrari. And the body is the exact same thing. If you're drinking 5, 6, 7 cans of Coke every single day, if you have 5 or 6 coffees every single day, doing all this stuff in excess and not working out, not stretching, not exercising, you're setting yourself up for failure. You wouldn't do that in a real estate portfolio, would you?
No, you wouldn't. And it's kind of interesting, Abhi, when two people part company, instead of saying bye, a lot of times they just say, take care of yourself. Well, 5 minutes after they say, take care of yourself, then they're off drinking a Mountain Dew themselves. So learn about something that matters and that's going to be lasting and that you're going to have to live inside, real estate or your body. What the largest organ in the body is? The largest organ in your body is the skin. Well, the largest organ in your body, that's also something that everyone is looking at, including yourself, all day, every day. So, for example, doing the right thing being more important than doing things right, read about your skin. Some people soak in a hot tub for 20 minutes. Do you know how much that ages your skin? Some people shower twice a day. Do you know how much that ages your skin? So just an example of doing the right thing being more important than doing things right. Look into things that matter, real estate and taking care of your body, and they're really intertwined.
Completely agree. I did not know that the skin was the largest organ of the body. Look at that. I learned something new today.
Yeah, so it's really worth learning about, but so is real estate. So what are some of the particular advantages that really drew you into real estate, that were really compelling, that was really a vehicle for doing something for yourself and your life that nothing else could?
I would say the number one thing was freedom. The freedom to spend time the way that I want to and with whom I want, where I want, on my own terms. And being able to, and of course, Keith, there's a lot to that, right? You have systems, you have property managers, you have different types of cash flowing real estate, single family, multifamily, this kind of stuff. But to sum it all up, the one word is freedom. It's not something that you can get anywhere else. Folks ask me, do you play the stock market, anything like that? And I say, nope, I don't. You know why? Because I don't have control over that. And quite frankly, I'm in a worse position than like a second or third lien holder. If I'm a shareholder, it gives me nothing. It doesn't really give me much of a return the way that real estate does, especially the cash flowing real estate. If you have a single family rental, you get there are 5 things, and Rich Dad talks about this, Kiyosaki talks about this. You have income, you can depreciate the asset, you can depreciate the home, you have equity, you have appreciation, and you have leverage, the 5 powerful factors that real estate can offer you that no other asset class does. So you combine freedom with like these 5 kingsmen or 5 kingswomen that are working on your behalf in real estate, and there's absolutely no partnership like it.
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, hopefully you listeners are listening. I hope you didn't go off and start Googling how hot tubs and long showers promote premature aging of the skin. You probably haven't heard me talk about that before. But yeah, real estate just being that investment vehicle that pays you so many ways at the same time just makes it astounding, where stock investors are paid one way with capital gains, maybe a second way if they have a dividend paying stock, but that's it. And it's largely speculative. Here, by this point, a lot of people see real estate has run up pretty substantially over the last 5 or so years. But if you look at it closely, on an inflation-adjusted basis, real estate still hasn't reached its high, its pre-recession high, and it's got a lot of demographic support for a whole lot of reasons that are taking place in society. And actually, its year-over-year appreciation rate's not unsustainable either. And it's all supported by still pretty sound, responsible loans. And those irresponsible loans are what got us in trouble last time. So there are really just so many trends out there that conspire to still make today a fantastic time to build a huge real estate portfolio. Anything in particular that you see going on out there, Abhi, that make today a great time to be a real estate investor?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about it from a flipping perspective, Keith, affordability for homeowners has increased substantially. So there is a bidding war every single time flippers put their homes on the market. That can be a very, very good thing for said flippers. And the biggest challenge that these flippers have now is just finding good cash flowing real estate. In Atlanta specifically, I can talk to that. We have an incredible amount of people moving here. So we have job growth, we have population growth. There are neighborhoods that are starting to get a little saturated. But we're also seeing those neighborhoods kind of flatten out. Slowly but surely, those values will start to plateau, and those increasing sales prices will start to kind of fall off a little bit as expected. I'm expecting here roughly after the NFL Super Bowl in 2019, so roughly late 2019, early 2020 is when we should see a slight correction, but it's not going to be as crazy as it was in 2007, 2008, like you said. The bad lending criteria, the bad loans, and the availability of those bad loan programs they're just not there right now. So we're definitely seeing low days on market, high velocity of product from the flipping end. In terms of, say, rentals, I can speak to like Midtown, Buckhead, Atlanta, and more downtown markets, and I'm sure this is the case for a lot of primary markets and potentially secondary markets nationwide, is the rental rates are increasing. And there is a good amount of competition, but there's also enough to go around. So that leaves one of two choices. One, we can purchase in A areas where you'll probably see your return rates in your high single digits, your 7.5%, 8%, 8.5%, potentially 9% returns you're looking at. But if you go outside the city where property is a little bit more affordable, then you can see ROI. You can see some good rates of return on your, whether it's cash on cash cap rate that you're looking at outside the city in secondary and tertiary markets. I do a lot of speaking at some of the institutional events such as IMN, and you see exactly kind of what the institutional funders are doing and what they're looking for. They're going to these secondary markets and seeing some substantial gains. So if you are in a primary market where rent might be a little out of control, whether say you're in Chicago and you're just like, wow, I can't find anything in the city, you know what? Don't fret, don't worry. Go outside maybe 30 or 40 minutes and see what inventory, what property that you can buy that will cash flow at the numbers that you're looking for. So there's certainly plenty of deals to go around on the single family rental end.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing a lot of things conspire here. I kind of think of it as geographics, demographics, and psychographics. What might make today a good time to be a real estate investor. You do see this migration of people to lower cost markets, including Atlanta and markets in the South and inland markets. Demographically, you've got millennials as the largest demographic, larger than the baby boomers, and a lot of them are just so saddled with this student loan debt because tuition's gone up faster than inflation that they just can't form the down payment to go ahead and make their own household, and that's why the renters, and that's why we're experiencing the lowest home ownership rate since at least 1965. And then there's that element of psychographics, which you really can't go ahead and put data into psychographics as much as you can something else. That's sort of that phenomena that millennials, the largest age cohort, did grow up during the Great Recession. They saw what happened to their parents. They saw what happened to their parents' home. Sometimes they might not have been aware of the value of their parents' home, but when their parents told their child that was a millennial back then that they couldn't move because they were underwater on their home, that really psychologically infected a lot of people, and that makes them want to become renters. So I really kind of think of geographics, demographics, and psychographics affecting both the national market and the Atlanta market as well.
Completely agreed. If you take a look at just the potential damage that uprooting a millennial that was going through that the real estate crash and what that did to jobs and their parents' jobs and moving and uprooting high schools or middle schools and going to find a new set of friends, a new school, everything like that. I mean, the mental pressure that millennials had to face with that leads me to believe that they're more interested in, YOLO. Right? You only live once.
Right.
So why not spend a little bit more money now? There's no point in saving for the long term because, hey, guess what? Look at what happened to mom and dad. It was a really tough time for us growing up because we lost a house or we had to move and we had to change cars and change schools and do all this stuff and they didn't like it. So like you said, that those psychographics play heavily into the now buying and or renting patterns of millennials. The other thing to note too is what you said about student loans. I think, when was it? Just last year, FICO is looking at credit scores a little differently. So if you haven't noticed, your credit score has probably increased an average of 7 to 8 points since the first quarter of 2016 until the first quarter of 2017. They're looking at student loans a little differently. And that may be more of a push for affordability to increase. And that could play a pretty important factor later on down the road for some of these millennials that may be interested in buying homes. But I'm very interested to see how the next year or two pans out, especially in Atlanta, especially how the psychographics play into the overall market condition as well.
Yeah, so both the psychographics and the demographics kind of play into this mantra for millennials of be a renter and travel a lot, because that mobility is really just an asset on your resume. And we really have other forces conspiring. And a lot of people overlook some of these more obvious ones than what we've been talking about, Abhi. That's just the fact that, and you brought up the fact that it's going on in Atlanta as well, but just nationally, just the fact that the overall population of the United States increases almost at a rate of 1% every year. And a lot of people just take that for granted. Like, well, of course the population increases, so there's going to be more demand for housing. Oh, no, look at Germany, look at Japan. You can't just take this stuff for granted. So that's really a positive attribute as well. Actually, at this time, we've also got 30-year fixed mortgage rates that have hit their low for the year that were already historically low.
That's right. And if you take a look at, so you have that, which leads directly to affordability. You have really strong sales for builders as a result of that. But now builders are finding that inventory is really tough to buy. So what's happening now in Atlanta, I'll give you an example. About a year and a half ago in Atlanta, I purchased a couple lots in Kirkwood. It's a nice little town, nice little neighborhood in East Atlanta. And I purchased these lots for roughly between $85,000 and $105,000. These lots, the objective was to redevelop, tear down the existing home, and build a new single-family home for resale. To give you an idea of the type of activity that has happened up until now, I just got a text message this morning from a potential real estate wholesaler, and he has a deal for me kind of in the same area. And he said, deal in Kirkwood, basement lot's already been cleared, new construction surrounded, roughly prices are going between $550 and $600, and they are asking $225,000 for this lot. It's a lot. It's the exact same dimensions, and I looked it up earlier today. The increase from say worst case $110,000 for lots a year and a half ago to $200,000 to $225,000 a lot. Are you kidding? That's insane. So inventory is decreased, affordability is increased, so days on market are decreasing, the velocity of the product is going left and right, but it's hard to find inventory to buy and to redevelop and to resell. Cost of material is going up, cost of labor is going up, so the profit margins for flippers are being pinched. That's why it makes a whole lot of sense to be paying attention to cash flowing rentals. Like I said, I'm very interested to see kind of where all this stuff pans out in the next year or so.
Yeah, that's astounding. In wrapping up, when it just comes down to the economics 101 of demand exceeding supply, a lot of us as real estate investors sure do shape up to be in good shape for the near future. Well, Abhi, as we're winding down here, just any final thoughts that the Get Rich Education listeners ought to know about?
I would say if you're just getting started, well, two final thoughts. One, if you're just getting started, pay attention to who you are and your investment personality. We talked about it a little bit before on the show, but it is so critical. I wanted to bring it up again because if you're just getting started, you need to know. You need to know, guys, like it's so difficult to have somebody else tell you what to invest in when you don't know that yourself, and then you don't know what to focus on. It leads to so many issues down the road. If you have an objective from the very beginning and you know, hey, I want to be an outstanding flipper, but I also want some cash flow, perfect. Now you've hit the nail on the head. Now you can go seek the right mentors. Now you can go seek the right financing. Now you can start to save a little bit of money or start a business or figure out a way to raise some capital to invest in deals. The second thing is if you are already a real estate investor, and I'm speaking to all you flippers out there, if you are not buying cash flowing property right now, you will be sorry. Everybody, cash flow is king, and Keith, I'm sure, will vouch for this as well. Cash flow is king. You know why? In a market where prices start to decline and as fear starts to set in, liquidating and selling your homes will become more difficult. What I'm doing right now in Atlanta is exiting my positions for all of my residential development and new construction and major and minor renovation properties and flips. And all that I'm doing is purchasing cash flowing single family and multifamily. That is it. We need to obviously have a balance of both. And if we don't, we're going to have to figure something else out when we see a correction. But cash flow is king. Please, please, please make sure that you have a right balance of that activity in your real estate investing world.
So you kind of think we're at a part in the cycle where it's a better time to take active flips out and go ahead and replace them with more cash flowing real estate as we've been riding up higher.
I think so. I think in Atlanta specifically, if you're flipping and your resales are between, say, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $900,000 on up, switch to maybe your $100,000 to $200,000 flips, it seems a little bit easier. There seems to be a little bit more margin. And best of all, you can either Airbnb those on a worst case, or you can also rent those out. I'm a big believer in options and taking advantage of every option that you can have in a worst case climate. I don't expect us to be in a worst case climate, but for the really, really big resale stuff, that's not really going to stick around a whole lot longer.
Yeah, it's hard to take exception with that mindset. Well, Abhi, my audience ought to become more familiar with you. Why don't you go ahead and give out your website?
Yep, the best way to get in touch with me is on realestatedealtalk.com.
Abhi Golhar, it's been valuable. Thanks so much for coming on to Get Rich Education.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
Yeah, a fun, free-flowing chat there with Abhi. Check out his website and podcast named Real Estate Deal Talk, and he's a really sharp and engaging person. I've got a little something to tell you, and I hope it's better for you. After getting feedback from some listeners and others, Get Rich Education is moving to Mondays. Yes, you can now start your Monday mornings by listening to future GRE episodes rather than Friday. And on the next episode, our first Monday show, we're going to talk with our youngest guest ever here. We're talking with a 22-year-old, freshly minted, recent college graduate, and he refuses to dive headfirst into the job pool like his college graduate friends have. And how can he have the audacity to do this? I didn't have that at that age. Instead of trading his time for dollars at a workaday job, he's foregoing that route and building a real estate investing business mostly from scratch, taking a short-term loss with the expectation of a long-term gain. We're going to see how much his friends are making and what they're doing versus what he's doing, and importantly, how much value they're each creating for the world. You could spend your time in so many ways, and I want to let you know how much I appreciate you listening today. Thanks for being here, but you weren't here for me. You were here for you. Hey, I look forward to meeting up with you here again on Monday. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.